morning, everyone! It is 7 o'clock here in Canyonland, USA.
C'est pas la première fois que vous faites une adaptation, mais c'est la première fois que vous adaptez une histoire vraie, ou en tout cas avec quelqu'un qui est vivant. Est-ce que justement ça vous a posé des problèmes? C'est-à-dire, j'imagine qu'il y a le respect de la personne qui est là, qui va voir le film. J'imagine qu'il y a aussi, qu'il faut respecter ça, qu'il y a des barrières qu'on ne peut pas franchir dans les libertés d'adaptation. Comment vous avez géré ça? Est-ce que ça vous a posé un problème à un moment donné?
We said to Aaron that it would become our story, really, because I think it's really amazing in cinema the way when you go to watch cinema, or you don't care whether it's a true story or not. If someone like James Franco is acting it, you just watch James Franco act it, you know? You're not thinking about Aaron Ralston the whole time, you're just thinking about James Franco. And so I tried to explain this to Aaron, and the irony of the fact that if we cast Aaron in the film as himself, people wouldn't believe it because he's not a good enough actor. And so it was that territory we wanted to be in. And in order to inhabit it, you have to make a promise that you hope you can keep, which is that you're not certain you'll be able to, but you hope you will be able to say, you'll be able to deliver on a promise that having made the film, you will not have disfigured or dishonored it, and that the owner of the story, which he is, will feel proud of what you've done, really.
And this morning, on the boulder, we have a very special guest, Aaron Ralston!
Oh gosh, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you.
On parlait beaucoup depuis le début, et à juste titre. 127 heures, c'est un film de Danny Boyle ou c'est un film de James Franco?
It's James Franco. With a film like this, if he's anything other than excellent, if he was anything less than excellent, the film wouldn't even have been released because you couldn't watch it, I don't think. But he is, I think, superb. And although he won't win any big awards, if there's as good a performance in the next 5 years in cinema, I'll be amazed, really, because it is an extraordinary performance. And I blame Pineapple Express, because I saw him in that and he was so funny. It showed, when those serious actors can do that kind of comedy, you know they've got within them the whole range of emotion to take an audience on a very special journey, I think.
You didn't tell anyone where you were going.
J'ai entendu dire que vous aviez voulu à un moment donné faire un film sur Brian Keenan. Qu'est-ce qui vous intéresse vous en tant que cinéaste? Qu'est-ce qui vous intéresse dans l'histoire d'un type qui est coincé à un même endroit et qu'on va regarder pendant 1h30 sans sortir de cet endroit? Est-ce que c'est des défis est-ce que c'est un défi qui vous intéresse de relever, en fait?
Well, the thing is, modern cinema, we can do anything now with CG. Anything. You can explode anything, from a human being to a planet. You can just explode it in a believable way. And cinema is wonderful, and I love going to see films like that. But also the wonder of cinema is that it magnifies as well, is that it can take the smallest detail and magnify it. And the thing it does, and I think this connects all films, even the ones that just explode planets, is that it magnifies the human face. And this thing that we live in, behind, and inside, it magnifies to 20 feet high, 40 feet high in the close-up. And it is the most extraordinary special effect in any movie of it. You need a great actor to be able to sustain it, but that's the idea of doing this kind of film, really. The Keenan project is the same, because the Brian Keenan was an Irish journalist, was kidnapped in Beirut in the 80s. With a British journalist, and they were chained to a radiator for 5 years in Beirut. And he wrote an amazing book about it called An Evil Cradling, which is a masterpiece book, an amazing book. And again, you would do, with that film, you would do that as well. It's about the human mind and face, really, in front of it.
Au-delà du sujet, au-delà de l'humain qui est effectivement au cœur de tous vos films, est-ce qu'il n'y a pas aussi la volonté de se lancer des défis? Je me rappelle d'une phrase de Simon Beaufoy, votre scénariste, qui disait si on dit impossible à Danny Boyle, ses yeux s'illuminent et il commence à s'agiter dans tous les sens et à dire ah oui, je sais que c'est impossible, et impossible c'est génial. On adore ce qui est impossible.
I love the perversity of chasing these impossible ideas if you can do them, really. So much of cinema is obviously packaged now. You know, it's neatly tied up and packaged with the right actors and the right genre. And if you're lucky enough to be in a position to defy that and to not obey it and to be perverse, then you should keep doing that for as long as possible, really. That's the idea, is to just try and inhabit that as long as you can, really, and keep working like that, I guess, really. So nobody is going to watch a film about a man who cuts his arm off, you know, unless it's like Saw 8 or something like that. But what we wanted to do was to make a film where you wanted him to cut his arm off by the end. Oops. That it's an immersive experience. So from something that becomes like, how are you ever going to make people watch that? You actually throw people into it through Franco's performance so they feel part of it. And actually, people do cheer when he actually does free himself from the rock, you know, because they feel implicated or involved or able to help him almost, to will him forward into doing it. And I love that kind of perversity, inverting what you might expect like that.
C'est pas moi qui ai amené le sujet donc sur la table. On va parler de la scène d'amputation. Je voudrais justement, quand vous avez lu ce livre, d'abord, quelle a été votre réaction sur cette scène? Est-ce qu'elle vous a fait peur? Est-ce qu'elle vous a excité en termes de, justement, en tant que cinéaste? Et surtout, comment est-ce qu'on fait aujourd'hui, vous parliez de Saw 8 ou je sais pas combien, et de la vague des tortures porn avec Hostel, etc. Comment est-ce qu'on fait pour encore aujourd'hui pouvoir secouer les spectateurs, parce que la scène est réellement très scotchante.
It's the power of the performer, really, does it? Because if you're not occupying torture porn or that kind of world, you're occupying something realistic, because he describes it in his book realistically, and the effect it had on me was it made me excited and fearful, but not as a filmmaker, just as a reader, reading his description, this extraordinary description, which felt it was writing that wasn't deliberate. He was just experience, like Primo Levi. It's people. Then these guys are not born writers, but hard experience makes them into conduits for you know, words to convey to us what this experience has been like, and makes it into something that you should watch, really, as part of human experience. And it's difficult, but mesmerizing at the same time.
Hey, you lost? I'm a guide. What do you say? See, I'm something of a big, hard hero.
C'est vrai que la force du film, c'est évidemment l'expérience humaine de James, enfin d'Aaron Ralston. Comment est-ce que vous avez réussi, vous vous êtes pas coupé le bras, enfin j'ai l'impression, comment est-ce que vous avez justement réussi à transmettre ça? Parce que pour Aaron Ralston, qui l'a vécu, finalement c'est assez simple, il raconte ce qu'il a vécu, donc il sait ce qu'il a vécu, mais vous, comment est-ce que vous avez eu accès à ça, à ces sensations, et pour justement réussir un film aussi fort d'un point de vue sensoriel?
Well, you have to try. I mean, it's arrogance, really. That you can believe you can try and that you believe you can try and capture his experience, not having been there, not having cut your arm off, but you feel somehow that you are capable of being able to try and convey to a cinema audience what it feels like to you when you read the book, and that is very arrogant, really, and you hope that you've done it. The basic technique was that we used this throughout the film, is we tried to make the film a first-person immersive experience. Not literally a point of view, but the camera literally is attached to him the whole time, virtually. Every shot feels like he is plunging you into it with him. So you feel like you're going through the experience as well. At the beginning, that's great, because he's having a great time, there's great music playing, there's lots of triple screens cutting, and then he meets these two cool girls, and they go swimming together in this pool, and it's all very sexy, and so you get lured in by the veneer of the film, by the technique of the film, and then it stops, he gets trapped, and then it gets stopped. And by then you hope that you're caught as well, and that you're going to have to work the rest of the film out with him, with James. So it's that idea of making it immersive for the audience, not objective, really.
See ya!
Bye. I don't think we figured in his day at all.
One of the things that's extraordinary about the story is that he took a video camera with him, and this is 2003, before YouTube was established, and he recorded a series of messages while he was there. And the way we did those is we gave James the camera that he used, and we just let him leave we all cleared off and let him leave the messages. He then acted them out on his own, and then we would look back at them. So I guess it really is a James Franco film, or a film by James Franco. We had this philosophy that the film was an action movie where the hero can't move, and that the momentum is created by his resourcefulness physically. He never stops trying to get out of there, which gives you camera movement. But also there's a journey of his heart, really. He has to change as a person. It's a classic kind of tale, really, and he does. Because these people that he's left behind at the beginning, that he's fled from, he's pulled back towards them, really, as he begins to learn about his own responsibility for being there, and the own, you know, the way that he has not cherished, really, the love and affection people have had for him, really. So there's momentum and change in that, in his heart, really, as well as being this physical momentum. So we tried to keep up this momentum in it. It isn't a film like the Sean Penn film, Into the Wild, which is a meditative film and is about the rhythm of the wilderness. This always felt to me like it had the jangling rhythm of the city. You know, it felt impatient and awkward, and I love that rhythm personally. Those are the films I want to make, with that kind of rhythm, really. And this felt like it had that, so we tried to give that as much as possible.
Qu'est-ce qui vous a, pour revenir au basique, qu'est-ce qui vous a réellement incité à tourner ce film? Pourquoi est-ce que vous avez, quand vous avez rencontré Aaron Ralston, pourquoi est-ce que vous avez voulu faire ce film?
Well, when I first met him, I felt so deeply about the story that I said to him, I shocked him, I think, because one of the first questions I asked him was, did he ever masturbate in the canyon? And he was a bit like taken aback, because he doesn't mention that in the book. But I was trying to remember what it was like to be 27, you know, and because he's a very, very fit 27-year-old man. And I was trying to remember what it's like when you're 27. And, you know, that's a big thing in part of your life, and sex, and so I was already asking him questions that he wasn't, almost not prepared to answer. And that felt to me like I could feel that was me taking possession of the book off him. Which, if you're going to do an adaptation, you have to take possession of it. If it's too reverential, it will be, you know, you will please those loyalists to the book, but you must make an original piece of cinema if you can, you know.
Do not